So now UK has Indian origin Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Even United States has Kamala Harris as Indian origin Vice President. अगर हम Google, Microsoft जैसी बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियों की बात करें तो it is led by Indian mind, Indian talent. क्या लगता है आपको कि आने वाले समय में what role Indians will play in international business and politics?
2023 is just the beginning of what our Prime Minister calls it as Amrit Kal.
How optimistic are you, sir? Like on 23rd, how are we going to land on a moon next event?
As a common man, I'm 99.999% optimistic. Yes, we are in New India and घर में घुसेंगे और मारेंगे भी, पर उन्हीं को मारेंगे जिनको मारने की जरूरत है और otherwise the eternal philosophy which has guided the India from the Rishi Muni days of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam will always reign supreme.
Hello and welcome. Wishing you a very happy 76th Independence Day to all my viewers. आज का ये एपिसोड सारे उन जवानों के नाम जो सरहद पे जाके मेरे आपके पूरे देश के लिए लड़ते हैं. Today we have a very special guest for you who have served Indian Armed Forces for 22 years. Indian Armed Forces के साथ 22 साल की उनकी जो कहानी है, जब हमने उन्हीं की जुबान से सुनी तो बस मुकम्मल के कुछ शब्द मुझे याद आ गए. मैं दुश्मन से नहीं डरता, मैं भारत का जवान हूँ, मरुस्थल की रेत हूँ, सियाचिन का आसमान हूँ. मैं दुश्मन से नहीं डरता, मैं भारत का जवान हूँ. मैं जून में तपती रेत पर लेटे कहता हूँ, आज सर्दी बड़ी कम है. दिसंबर की ठंड को पीकर कहता हूँ कि गर्मी का मौसम है. मैं बर्फ में 9 दिन दफन रहकर जिंदा निकलता हूँ. सीने में अपनी सांस को टुकड़ों में भरता हूँ. मैं इन महासागरों के कपड़े बदलता हूँ. -30 डिग्री में राइफल टांग कर टहलने निकलता हूँ. आदम जात की औकात क्या, जब मैं कुदरत से नहीं डरता. मैं भारत का जवान हूँ, मैं दुश्मन से नहीं डरता. दोस्तों, इंडियन आर्मी के बस ऐसे ही एक जवान आज हमारे साथ है टू सेलिब्रेट द 76th Independence Day of India. Please join me to welcome today on the Social Superfly show for you, Lieutenant Colonel Rama Krishna Gorty. Enjoy the show. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm great, fine, thank you.
I'm so honored to have you on the show, sir. Today is a very special day. We are celebrating the 76th Independence Day, and I couldn't think of any other guest better than you to have on the show today. शुरुआत से शुरू करते हैं, sir. Like, which was a moment that made you decide that you want to join Indian Army and serve our country?
पहली बात तो ये है कि I was doing my studies in a place called Visakhapatnam.
Yeah.
And the Fauji's there were naval people, and the naval officers there used to वो कभी-कभी हमारे पास मिलने आते थे, मोटिवेट करते थे. एंड जो इज्जत नेवल ऑफिसर की होती थी वो खुद देखने के बाद एक बचपन का इम्प्रिंट माइंड में सेट हो जाता है दैट व्हेन आई ग्रो अप आई वांट टू बी दिस. So that was the starting idea that I had during my 10th and 12th standards. After that, of course, like everybody else, I did my graduation, and उसके बाद Combined Defense Services exam के लिए I went there. I got selected, and I joined the Indian Army. So I joined the Indian Military Academy in February 1993. एंड तब तक जो सपने थे इंडियन आर्मी joining as an officer, that moment had really arrived. Well, to my family, of course, my father was in railways, and उन्हें वैसे आर्मी के बारे में कुछ ज्यादा पता नहीं था. And my mom was always supportive of me, and she said that wherever you go, you do your best. And that's how she motivated me. It's still a motivating factor in my life. And one fine day, I started off, packed my bags,
Yeah.
एंड देहरादून पहुंच गए ट्रेन से, और वहां से एक नया चैप्टर शुरू होता है.
हाँ.
The gates of mercy closes on you. Now it's hard work.
Yeah. Very true.
So that is the encryptic form of what I was before I joined the army. 18 महीने में I came out of Indian Military Academy.
जी. Yeah.
जब मैं गया था तो एक सिविलियन था, जब मैं वापस आया तो मैं कुछ और ही था.
So let's go back to your training days, sir. कहते हैं कि आर्मी की जो ट्रेनिंग है, that change the person not just as a physical level, also at a mental level, emotional level. It just makes you a different person. You are ready for different challenges, for a different life. कुछ बातें ऐसी जो आप शेयर करना चाहोगे आपके इंडियन आर्मी के ट्रेनिंग डेज से?
ट्रेनिंग में 3 चरण होते हैं, फर्स्ट 6 months, सेकेंड 6 months एंड द लास्ट 6 months.
Yeah.
तो 3 टर्म्स कहे जाते हैं. तो पहले 6 महीने में जो तुम्हें ट्रेनिंग दिया जाता है, दैट इज टू नो योर लिमिट्स, नो योर फिजिकल कैपेबिलिटीज, टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट यू कैन एक्सीड बियॉन्ड योर फिजिकल कैपेबिलिटीज. एंड पहले 1 महीने में यू अंडरगो ए रैपिड डी लर्निंग लेसन.
Okay.
You actually de-learn or unlearn
Yeah.
whatever you have in your mind, and then you are after 1 month as good as a blank sheet.
Yeah.
उस पर then the army puts its own colors.
वाह, इंटरेस्टिंग. सो क्या रूटीन क्या होता है सर इंडियन आर्मी की जब ट्रेनिंग चलती है? व्हाट टाइम यू वेक अप? पूरे दिन में क्या क्या एक्टिविटीज होती है? व्हाट यू गो थ्रू लाइक ऑन ग्राउंड इन द इंडियन आर्मी ट्रेनिंग?
3:30 बजे उठ के you have to shout out or give an alarm to the entire squadron or the company.
Okay.
That there's a typical way of howling and shouting that happens.
Yeah.
Whether it doesn't matter whether it is raining, whether it is cold, whatever it is, 3:30 and you're on top of there's a in my days there used to be a cycle rack or something and a shed on top. You have to climb up the shed and shout out to your entire platoon. And slowly everyone wakes up, and from 4 to 4:45, I think, he would take us on a 5-kilometer run along the jungles, which are, we used to call them Mitti Vedi. There's a village which is right behind the Indian Military Academy.
Okay.
So through those tea gardens and all, we used to run 5 kilometers, and everyone used to come back before 4:45. And in 10 minutes, by that time, the third termers would be just arriving for tea. After that, the second termers, then the first termers.
Yeah.
And thereafter, then after having a cup of tea, you quickly change into your PT rig or the drill rig. Rig is basically, it means dress. And then you run as fast as possible because you hardly got 10 minutes and reach that particular place. And there, the actual physical training by the Ustad start.
Yeah.
So you'd already run 5 kilometers, and thereafter, it's an 1 hour intense PT parade. You do lot many things. You do push-ups, sit-ups, you do running, you go for another 1.2 kilometers of speed run, or sometimes you could even end up repeating 5 kilometers all over again. So that clocks your 10 kilometers already in the first few hours of the day. And thereafter, the next period could be the drill period, which is equally exhausting. You reach the drill square, your dress is checked up. If you are found wanting in any of those things, you're sent to what is known as a 0 point, where you do some mandatory punishments and then join back again. And thereafter, the drill period, it starts with the ultimate rigor. And by the time the drill is about to finish, you generally have that feeling that those last 5 minutes, if you extend them for 5 more minutes, maybe you would just fall off.
Oh.
But then that is the nature that every time it keeps getting extended by 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes, and thereafter then you are left off. When you go running, go to your mess to have your breakfast, and the moment you sit in on your table, there's a second timer on one side, a third timer on one side, and they're all already at the breakfast table,
Yeah.
and you're hungry as hell, and when you want to eat, and then you're already getting late for the next class. That
Yeah.
could be somewhere around 3-4 kilometers away.
Oh.
So you go running there,
We go
and it
running
could
then,
be
and
a,
okay, there
but
is no transportation which takes you there. You have to
yeah,
go
the transportation is
running.
always there.
Yeah.
You're given a bicycle,
Yeah.
but all throughout the first 6 months, the
Yeah.
bicycle rides you. You don't ride the bicycle. So sometimes it's a relief that
Yeah.
you don't go on the bicycle.
Uh,
But if you have to go on the bicycle, you would carry it on your neck, and then you keep running.
yeah.
Long years after I passed out, and once I took my 12-year-old son to the Indian Military Academy, and I was sitting in the main cafe, and he saw this lot of four people led by one guy, with all of them carrying bicycles on their heads and
Oh.
running. And he asked me, "What is that? What
Yeah.
is that kind of a training?" So
Uh,
I couldn't explain it to him. I said, "If you join the Indian Military Academy, you will come to know."
yeah.
But of course, the entire 6 months is interspersed with various kinds of outdoor activities which are outside of the Indian Military Academy also. Like one odd day on a Sunday, we'll all be called up early in the morning at 5 o'clock, and there'll be a trek organized from Dehradun to Mussoorie
Yeah.
and back.
Oh.
So climbing from Dehradun to Mussoorie
Mm.
and climbing down again.
Oh.
I mean, it's an adventure in itself.
It is. It is.
So in the first 6 months, you are simply shell shocked, and your whole 6 months are gone in a jiffy, and you are ready for a second term. And eventually, one day you pass out, and uh, there's something known as अंतिम पग.
Mhm.
जब उसके ऊपर पैर रखते हो और लास्ट पासिंग आउट परेड में आफ्टर doing the entire parade, then you go back to your company offices, and thereafter you are considered that you are passed out from the Indian Military Academy, given your identity card and a rank of a second lieutenant. I, as a lieutenant at that time, promoted just after 1 year, or what we call it as field lieutenant. So I was uh, at a place called Punch. Punch is Punch Rajouri access is a for people who don't know. You have to cross the Aknur Bridge, and thereafter then the plains of Sundarbani, and then get into the Bimbergali area. Then before that, there would be a military location at Rajouri where the divisional headquarters are located, and
Yeah.
thereafter then go further to Punch. Punch
Yeah.
is the last station. So we used to start at 4:30 or 5 in the morning from the transit camp in Jammu,
Yeah.
and by 6:30 in the evening we used to reach Punch.
तो सर आपने ये जो आर्मी के जो अंतिम चरण की जो ट्रेनिंग है वो कंप्लीट की और वहां से आप रजौरी तक पहुंचे. So how was the feeling when you were actually you completed your training and you were part of the Indian Armed Forces?
Yeah, the moment you pass out of the academy and you join your unit,
Yeah.
you have that kind of a feeling that yes, you are an army officer, and you have got all kinds of ideas. You are physically fit. You are absolutely raring to go and all. But the first 6 months in the unit is generally, whatever. Uh, it's called the golden period for a young
yeah,
officer.
yeah,
He is allowed to do whatever he wants to do.
yeah,
He is allowed to mingle with anyone he wants to,
yeah.
including his men and all. He's encouraged. In fact, he is encouraged to do so,
Huh.
and he is allowed to learn lessons by virtue of either
Yeah,
succeeding or failing.
yeah,
Everything is marked for him.
yeah.
सब कुछ माफ कर दिया जाता है.
Okay.
But soon after that,
Yeah,
then you start understanding that the golden period is not eternal.
yeah,
You have the responsibility of your men,
yeah,
and you need to perform. And I would be daily reporting to my commanding officer on a telephone about what is happening exactly in Punch and what you are doing.
yeah,
It used to give me a sense of immense pride.
yeah,
At such a young age, I'm
yeah.
getting a command of 150 men,
Wow,
and I need to
exactly.
do my best.
सबसे पहली बार वो यूनिफॉर्म में आने वाली फीलिंग क्या थी?
It's a feeling of pride. It's a feeling of belongingness. It's a feeling that you had
Yeah,
achieved something.
yeah,
And there is also a slight kind of a fear of the unknown. I won't say that. We won't fear the unknown, but an anxiety to know what is there for us in future.
yeah. True, true.
So those were the mixed feelings on such occasions. And thereafter, then in Punch, we had we underwent a 2.5 years tenure there, and it was a solid grounding in whatever I had learned in the academy, and thereafter, everything was tested: your physical limits, your mental patience, and and it also taught me the humility to learn from them, which is very, very important, without which you won't become the person you are today. There was one situation which I can still recollect when there was a IED explosive which was kept underneath a very crucial bridge connecting the brigade headquarters to the rest of the Punch town.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was opined by the brigade that it won't be in the interest if we blow it in situ. So somebody had to defuse it, and we did that operation. I was the one to go and somehow neutralize it. We did it with almost zero training, but only what we call it Jazba.
Yeah,
And those were those days when we were involved from morning to night on these kind of tasks, other than the operational, support that the engineers were supposed to give to the various units. Would stay at a infantry battalion's forward location for days together, come down, take lessons, site out a new bunker, or carry out certain surveys and all. So it was a very hectic, tenure, and as a youngster, you were the darling of the entire brigade, and and you had a lot of friends in the infantry. Sometimes it would be great that you go to an infantry battalion and you meet one of your postmates there, and it's like after the academy, meeting them would be because most of them you don't get to meet. Most of them don't get to meet each other. Some of them, I haven't met them for last, 23 years,
yeah,
24 years.
yeah,
And suddenly one day you'll find one guy in Bangalore. And yes, everybody goes there to meet him. People are meeting after 23, 24 years.
yeah,
Those who have spent those 1.5 years under the training, under the same roof,
yeah,
now meeting after 20, 24 years.
yeah.
It's an amazing feeling.
So आपने काफी लंबे
Yeah.
टाइम तक जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में आपने सर्व किया है. लास्ट टाइम वी स्पोक अबाउट लाइक यू हैव सर्व्ड एट डिफरेंट एलओसी ऑफ इंडिया. एक्चुअली बैटलफील्ड पे जब कॉम्बैट सिचुएशंस में क्या होता है, मतलब वुड यू लाइक टू शेयर सम स्टोरीज फ्रॉम दैट?
2002, 2003,
Yeah.
I was posted out to an RR unit,
Yeah.
which was located in the Doda area of J&K, uh, Doda Kishtwar area. And there was a new force set up there. There were no permanent, places where we could go and plonk ourselves. But we had to create some new kind of a company operating basis and all. And my job as a company commander in the Rashtriya Rifles was to hunt and kill down militants. It was as simple and plain as that. And I had to acquire intelligence for that. I had to conduct operations and I have to neutralize them.
Mhm.
So this was the basic task put in simple words.
Mhm.
So we, as a part of a new rising RR unit, we trained hard for 6 months at a place called Coimbatore in South. And thereafter, then we were put into the valley after a 1 month of orientation course at one of the core battle schools. And theoretically, we were equipped with all the knowledge about militancy in Jammu and Kashmir and what are the modus operandi of militants, कैसे काम करते हैं, कैसे इंटेलिजेंस लेना है, कौन सा इलाका ज्यादा मिलिटेंट से भरा होता है, कौन सा कम होता है, उनके आने जाने के रास्ते, वो कहाँ रहते हैं एंड ज्यादा टाइम कहाँ बिताते हैं, किस इलाके में बिताते हैं, कौन सा विलेज मिलिटेंट्स को ज्यादा फेवर करता है, कौन सा कम फेवर करता है और कौन सा बिल्कुल नहीं करता है. These villages are graded into white, grey, and black villages and all that. And promptly, once we were after out of the core battle school, I had to take my company, and we were to establish a company operating base on a spur of a huge mountain. And as an advance party, I took around 45 to 50 men along with me, and I was leading them and started off from my regimental headquarters after getting some packed breakfast at around 4:30 or 5 in the morning.
Mhm.
And then go right from my regimental headquarters, the climb started.
Mhm.
And we climbed and climbed and climbed to reach that location. And eventually, by around 7:30 in the evening, we reached our location
Mhm.
in the evening. So it was almost like a 12-hour climb, and it's a steep climb.
Yeah.
It's almost like a 70 to 80-degree climb.
Oh.
So, people were tired. It was a very hard day, and they just were relaxing in that particular area and trying to figure out how do we make a company operating base out of it. What are the locally available materials there? What are the villages which are adjoining this place? What are the pagdandis? कौन से हैं? कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? Everything was to be known. But of course, we could have done that the next day. And we could have done that the next day, but what was bugging us was that there were reports from the radio said that you are in a sort of a next to a black village or whatever it is, and आपको इतना जल्दी वो तो settle होने नहीं देंगे, and the first attack on you might come this very night,
Mhm.
so be prepared for that. We are making preparations. We are not bothered, and uh, we were uh, we were of course aware of it. And but then you are never aware of a situation until and unless it fully develops and presents itself in front of you.
Yeah.
So in this kind of a situation, the at 12 o'clock in the night, when I was checking the guards and guard duties and literally going around, the first shot was fired from an RPG.
Mhm.
And it overshot us, of course, but the kind of boom that it creates, the noise it creates, it even scares the you know, hell out of anyone who is in that range.
I get it. Yeah.
And maybe because because of its scary noise and all, the militant it found favor with the militants actually using more of rocket launchers.
Wow.
Whereas our rocket launchers are basically the Carl Gustavs and all, so they are more accurate and more deadly, but they don't make this kind of a noise.
Noise. Yeah.
So then that was the time when I understood that yes, this is the moment of decision now, and we got everyone. We literally formed a 360-degree defense of that particular place, and we were redistributing our ammunition, and there was firefight going on, and these guys were firing at us from distance of around 150, 200 meters, and not some, but the kind of volume of fire that we gave back to them, it indicated that they had also underestimated our strength, and they had thought that maybe they can overrun us, but that may not be possible and all that. So in the melee, it lasted for an hour and a half. In that melee, yes, luckily we didn't have any casualties, and our people did their fieldcraft very well. But we got two of their persons, and that was a glorious beginning to our tenure there. So, in fact, one of the toughest times I had was during this time when we had planned out a lengthy kind of a patrol where we would visit a number of villages. It was a very circuitous route. And finally, after covering the mountain ridgeline for almost around 30 odd kilometers, we'd come back again after 3, 4 days. And when we started off, and finally the weather was not at its best, and it was raining and pouring, and we were slugging along. And in the night, we were in an ambush. Movements would be sometimes carried out in the night to ensure that you don't stay at the same place at the same time. And then, the stress grows incrementally upon everyone. And I was also a human being. I also experienced this kind of a extreme stress level and all. After 2, 3 days of walking around and all, we didn't get any contact per se. But of course, visiting various grey and white villages and all. And finally, it was time to make make it to one particular point, and thereafter then descend into a valley and then climb back up again into our temporary operating base. And it was almost 3 or 4 days. It run out of rations literally, and we were living off the villages, like whatever was available there. Because we are run out of rations in the sense that you can only carry that much which can last you for 2, 3 days. It becomes difficult, and there's always a balance between the kind of ammunition you carry and the amount of ammunition you carry and the amount of rations you carry. And people always prefer to carry extra ammunition, not extra rations. So yes, they were each one had a good load of around 25 to 30 kilograms on his back, and apart from that, of course, another say 8 kilograms of both the BPJ and BPP, as we call it, bulletproof jacket and bulletproof patka, and then of course was your weapon, and
So
then
कितना
there are some other accessories
कितना
as
वेट
well.
होता है, कितना वेट होता है सर, like when you are,
Eventually 30 to 32 kgs हो जाता
so you're walking with a 32 kg weight.
है. Yeah.
Ah, and
You are walking with that kind of load.
sometimes we have to
Rather than,
climb top of
and
the hills.
yeah, so you lug it out, you climb. There's no other choice. I
Unbelievable.
mean, you can't carry. I mean, what's the other way out? There's nothing.
Yeah.
You're trained for that, of course, but then still it's a very, very tedious affair.
Yeah.
And that also weighs on your mind, of course. तो चलता रहता है ये सब. And it was sometime in the evening, of course. It was slightly dark, and we had to cross a particular place, which
Yeah.
was 100 meters in. There's a Kacha road which was going
Mhm.
100 meters in length. On one side of it were all these double-story dokes and all, which were right hugging that foot track.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the foot track was a kind of a khud or a nala, which was at least 200 odd feet deep. So if you fall into that, then you fall 200 feet deep. So it was the only way we could have crossed that village, since it was on the ridge line or just below the ridge line, and circumventing the village to any other way was not feasible because of the cuts, jagged
Mhm.
cuts, and other things that were it was not possible. We had to go across, and we are being constantly, warned by the people, the signal intelligence and all. There's a black village, and you are certain to have a firefight here.
Black Village क्या होता है?
Black
What?
village is
Yeah.
because of its history. Maybe people in that village had earlier had too many militants staying over there. It
Mhm.
was some kind of a launch pad to get into and disperse into the valley,
Okay.
or the villagers were more, because of many reasons, those villagers were who were living there.
Mhm.
Maybe either they had been manipulated, or
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah.
they had been more pro militants than the armed forces, etc. So we had to cross that, and the scouts and all literally. I was also at my best of my tempers, and I just called back both of them and asked them to go behind and come back as the rear party, and just took my AK and divested myself of all the bulletproof jacket and patka, everything, and put one pistol in my back, in my belt, and with one AK, I howled on everyone and said, hey, you got to cross this. You got to cross it. So I'll be the first one to cross it. When I go down there, I expect you to come all along the way I had gone.
Yeah.
And I started off in a zigzag manner as crossing that. And those 100 meters were the longest stretch of distance that I had covered in one go in my entire life. Everything blanked off
Yeah.
the moment I started off at this, and it started raining a bit more. And I don't know whether it was that the stress got to me, or something. The rain was literally pouring over my face,
Yeah.
and so I couldn't make out whether it was tears or the rain.
Yeah.
And step by step, I took and covered those 100 meters. And finally, when I reached to the other side, I, immediately कहते हैं ना आड़ पकड़ना
Yeah.
behind a particular tree or something,
Mhm.
and then called out to everybody else. So
Yeah.
soon the entire company made it to the other side.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it was so nerve wracking, and no, there was nothing. There was, unfortunately or fortunately, there was no firefight, there were no militants. Maybe the village was unoccupied because of some reason or the other, and or maybe only the women and children were there. The
Mhm.
men folk had gone somewhere. I don't know what has happened, but no one had fired on us. But
Mhm.
yet, your own fears and your own, reading of the situation
Yeah.
actually played havoc on your minds.
Yeah.
And when I reached the other side, of course, my company Sudar, he took me aside, and he literally told me in my ears, "This is the last time you are doing this stunt. The next time you do so, I'm going to complain to the commanding officer. He had the balls to tell me that. Literally, though, of course, he knew that he's talking to his company commander, and he can't talk like that. But then, yes, he was also totally out of his mind.
Yeah.
And he was saying that, God forbid if there was somebody and you had indulged in a firefight and all, then rescuing you from there would have become impossible,
Yeah. सर
literally.
सर क्या माइंडसेट होता
So
है, क्या क्या माइंडसेट होता है जब कॉम्बैट सिचुएशन में आप
it was,
होते हो?
the moment I quietly, I was behind the tree,
Yeah.
and it was so tense that the bile actually was throwing up, and I was literally puking.
Oh.
Of course, after a few minutes and a bottle of water and all, you'll be absolutely fit and fine. But then that is the kind of mind games that your own mind plays on you.
Yeah.
So an important lesson I learned there was, so you have to not let your own mind play mind games on you.
Yeah.
And I was also associated with the Indian Navy in almost 4 years in Delhi. We're planning out the phase two of a very important project called Project Seabird, which is in west of western coast, that is Karwar, 100 kilometers south of Goa. In fact, I had learned a lot from the Navy as well, because in fact, my at that time, the Director General of the project was Admiral Karambir Singh, who later on became Chief of Naval Staff. I was so closely attached to him.
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with him, and it's a joy.
So let me ask you, when you're one on one with enemy, like face to face with enemy on the combat zones, how do you manage to put country first?
You don't do this exercise
Yeah.
when you are right in front of the enemy, but rather all through the number of years you had been with your men and all,
Yeah.
you are preparing for this kind of an eventuality.
Yeah.
So how do you put country first? The answer is very simple.
Yeah.
You drill into yourself and the people under you
Yeah.
three most important things that they can carry home. That is Naam, Namak, and Nishan. Naam, Namak, Nishan. Naam is the name of your unit, for which it's like your family.
Yeah.
Ghar ka naam. It's like your unit, your brigade, and your formation which you are serving. कभी नाम ऐसा, it has to be drilled into them that naam is supreme.
Yeah.
You can't do an action which will lead to that being questioned at all.
Yeah.
That is out of the scope.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable.
Uh-huh.
Namak is not just the army and its formations. Namak is owed to the people of this country, to your families, to your support system, to the government, and the country first. This is where you can say it is directly saying it is country first.
Yeah.
You're saying country first in English,
Yeah.
but country first actually translates in these situations to only one simple word: Namak and Nishan.
Wow.
And Nishan is basically your entire essence of being in India. You are representing the government of India.
Yeah.
You are acting on behalf of it.
Yeah.
You are the armed forces, and you are the flag bearers of the armed forces.
Yeah.
And for these three things, Naam, Namak, and Nishan, no amount of sacrifice is great.
That's awesome. 2023 is a very special year for our country. 2 days back, we know that Chandrayaan 3 has successfully inserted into the lunar orbit, and we are not very far from moon. I'm sure it's a very proud moment for our country. What does it mean for India? I mean, what's your take on that, sir?
It's a leap into the future, and it's a giant leap for India. And it is, and at a geopolitical level, it shows that we are one of those few countries which can carry out a mission of this magnitude.
Yeah.
So it's a proud moment for India, regardless of what exactly would be the situation on 23rd. Still, it is sure to land, and the rover is certain to, embark from the lander. And I wish ISRO and my countrymen the best of the, sailing in this part of the project.
How optimistic are you, sir? Like on 23rd, are we going to land on a moon with Chandrayaan 3?
As a common man, I'm
Yeah.
99.999% optimistic.
So ये साल प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी G20 की प्रेसिडेंसी को लीड कर रहे हैं. क्या लगता है आपको? How will it impact the world economics and politics?
Well, India launching G20 is a big event for
Yeah.
India, and it marks the shift of the center of gravity from Europe to
Yeah.
Asia. That is for
Yeah.
certain.
Yeah.
Secondly, it shows the growing importance and reliance of Europe as a market, USA as a market on India,
Yeah.
and it also shows a ray of hope to many African nations
Yeah.
towards aligning with India and benefiting from its economic development. Another important thing that is an offshoot of G20 meet would be its effect on the United Nations, which has grown into an organization that is not transparent and it is not reactive to the needs and challenges of the 21st century.
Yeah.
So it is up to the UN to now, give India its rightful place in the committee
Yeah.
of the five UNSC permanent members,
Yeah.
or slowly see its own stature being reduced as the
Mm-hmm.
time goes by.
Yeah.
We are the largest democracy. We are the third largest economy. I don't think they can afford to ignore us anymore.
So now UK has Indian origin Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Even United States has Kamala Harris as Indian origin Vice President. अगर हम गूगल माइक्रोसॉफ्ट जैसी बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियों की बात करें तो इट इज लेड बाय इंडियन माइंड इंडियन टैलेंट. क्या लगता है आपको कि आने वाले समय में व्हाट रोल इंडियंस विल प्ले इन इंटरनेशनल बिजनेस एंड पॉलिटिक्स?
2023 is just the beginning of what we call it, what our Prime Minister calls it as Amrit Kal.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be, as Jeff Bezos had himself said, going to be the century of India.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is going to be India centric.
Yeah.
Our qualified population and our technology people, our managers, and our leaders, they're going to assume pole positions, not just in the, as CEOs or CFOs of multinationals,
Yeah.
but also as leaders of various, uh, countries like UK. Now it is India's turn, and it is India's culture and values that will dictate the kind of impact India will have in the 21st century. And I predict that by the end of this century, India would again attain its pole position as an economic superpower in this world.
Wow.
Yes, we are a new India, and घर में घुसेंगे और मारेंगे भी, पर उन्हीं को मारेंगे जिनको मारने की जरूरत है. और otherwise, the eternal philosophy which has guided the India from the Rishi Muni days of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam will always reign supreme.
So it was wonderful having you on the show, sir. Thank you for making a 76th Independence Day for our audience so special. Really, really delighted to have you on the show today, sir. Thank you.
The pleasure is all
And
mine, and it's been great, reliving all those memories. Normally, you don't sit for an hour and introspect, but yes, it's a great thing to go back into those timelines and
Yeah,
remember those golden days, as I call it.
yeah, true. uh, One thing I can say
Thank
is a
you for to your
huge
and
salute for every single contribution you have made in 22 years.
in fact, it's my salute to all my countrymen on 76th, Independence Day. And because of their perseverance, because of their belief in us, and because I believe that I'm grateful to them that they had given me a chance to live a life of this nature. And I'll eternally be grateful to the Almighty and my, countrymen for getting me into a kind of a dream like 22 years that I had. So in fact, I should salute you and your team for evoking all those strong memories, and it has been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure reliving all those moments with you.
दोस्तों आई होप आज का ये एपिसोड उतना ही एंजॉय किया आपने जितना हमने। सोशल सुपरफ्लाई शो का आज का ये एपिसोड भारत के सारे वो नौजवानों के लिए एक ट्रिब्यूट है जिन्होंने हमारे देश को, हमारे कल को बेहतर बनाने के लिए पूरी उनकी जिंदगी कुर्बान कर दी। आज के एपिसोड में से कौन सा वो मैसेज, कौन सी वो बात आपको पसंद आई, बताइए मुझे नीचे कमेंट सेक्शन में। ऐसे ही कुछ अमेजिंग गेस्ट को लेके हम आते हैं एवरी सिंगल वीक आपके लिए। सो जल्दी से हमारे चैनल सोशल सुपरफ्लाई को सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए। एंड अंटिल आई सी यू अगेन विद अ नेक्स्ट वेरी स्पेशल गेस्ट, प्लीज टेक वेरी गुड केयर ऑफ योरसेल्फ। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
And Nishan is basically your entire essence of being in India. You are representing the government of India.
Yeah.
You are acting on behalf of it.
Yeah.
You are the armed forces. And you are the flag bearers of the armed forces. And for these three things, Naam, Namak and Nishan, no amount of sacrifice is great.
That's all.